Hello and welcome to our program, Where God Weeps, a program where we talk about the situation of the suffering church around the world. Today it is my very great privilege to be speaking with His Excellency Metropolitan Nicolas Antiba, the Melkite Greek Catholic Archbishop of Bosra in Syria.
Thank you for welcoming me, and I have the pleasure, to meet with you too.
Your Excellency, you were born on Christmas Day in 1945 in Aleppo, a day when the world was celebrating the end of World War II, a day of peace. Do you find it not heartbreaking that today, so many years later, you are praying for that very same peace?
Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, but if God wanted, to be incarnate in that day, as we can say, He wanted to bring peace into this world, as also an important and very famous Arabic Muslim poet, Ahmed Shawqi, did say that in that day the fraternity and peace were born into this world. And I wish that all the world will understand, because in the Middle East, what we wanted only peace. That land was always torn apart by many invasions from the east, from the west. And I would say Syria was always that cracked down on all this civilization. We were born to live together as a human people, but also Christian, Muslim, Druze, Sunnite, Shiites, and Zaradites, and everybody.
Exactly.
God knows.
I want to ask you now precisely, this city of your birthright, the city of Aleppo, is at the heart of a war which is tearing Syria apart. Can you tell us a little bit, what is it like living on the ground in Aleppo today, in Syria today?
It is really very hard. Myself, I can say I flew Aleppo kind of a year and a half ago, a little more than that. And one of my brothers is staying there because he couldn't escape.
Now, why did you have to flee Aleppo?
I had to flee Aleppo for the simple reason because I was afraid. Just we received two kind of bombs near the house where I was living with my brother. And the fear, took us, one part. And the other thing is my brother itself had, threatened to leave, the city of Aleppo because they wanted, to kidnap him if he wouldn't, pay some kind of money. And that's why his wife and himself, decided, to leave the city and to go by his daughters, who are now living, unfortunately, fortunately, in Switzerland. Then the fear who took us, but I have to say, my brother, the other brother, and my aunts, my uncles, my nieces, my cousins, all of them are still in Aleppo, but they are living in a great fear. You have to say, that the city itself was kind of bombarded from one side, and by the other side was people, these mercenaries were paid, to come so that under the title of rebellion, for searching for democracy, all of this, these people they are destroying the city. They are destroying really that kind of atmosphere, that framework where we're living all of these years. I can say my family, the best friend of my families were Muslims. They would come by us and they would go with them, you know, and they will share, you know, meals together. And even we had, you know, some Jews, they were with us. We were living in a peaceful way.
Yes.
So that only just because the West wanted to put democracy in our world. What does mean democracy for them? It doesn't mean for us.
Yes.
Still, we are living in a kind of a framework. You know, the head of the family is the one that we call, you know, the Hakim, the sage guy, you know,
the wise one.
The wise one,
Yeah.
the one who give, you know, directions, you know, to the other member of the family, who is respectful. And people do not, you know, obey him because he said so, but because there is, you know, a kind of respect. Well, addition, that's it.
How
this
is
is
it?
the way.
You've mentioned the situation of the Christians and Muslims living together in peace up until this point in Syria. In fact, Syria was an island of peaceful and harmonious living together. Has the war broken this irreparably, or is there still, between neighbors, is there still solidarity? Is there still a sense of a wish to live together?
Not only wish, there is an action. And church today is the only place where people can meet. Not only can meet, Muslims and the Christians are fed by the church. And thanks to all the donations that come from all over the world, you know, from charities, from all of that, you know, the church is helping without any kind of distinctions, without any distinctions between Muslims and Christians. In fact, in Aleppo, the bishops who are there, you know, especially the Greek Melkite Catholic and the Chaldean Catholic and the Syria Catholic and Armenian Catholic are helping, and their bishopric, they are filled now with families who left, you know, their houses, not only from Aleppo, but also from outside of Aleppo, because in the beginning, Aleppo was a kind of an island of peaceful situation.
Yes.
But until, you know, these mercenaries wanted to erupt into it and try, you know, to bring hatred into the heart of the people. People are starting, you know, to be afraid, and some local, you know, avenues were left, you know, to come, and those people were coming and obliging people, you have to be with us or we kill you. And that's why many of the churches were destroyed, especially Armenian people, because they wanted, you know, to preserve and to defend their places. Many of our churches were also destroyed.
Yes.
And we are talking about Aleppo. But I would like, you know, maybe to talk also maybe about Bosra, where I am Archbishop.
Yes, please.
Okay? 3 of the churches that where I would say the situation started, that what we call that revolution started, were destroyed completely. And one of these, the Isra, you know, church, which is one of the oldest churches in the Middle East, you know,
it's
was
a cultural
destroyed.
tragedy.
Absolutely, absolutely. I cannot understand how these mercenaries who have no sense of civilization, of culture, and they are destroying all of these things.
I have a question for you. In Egypt, just a brief interruption. In Egypt, for example, with the attack of some terrorist groups on the churches, Muslims and Christians held hands to protect the properties from being attacked and destroyed. Do you also see this same solidarity with some of the Muslims in Bosra, for example, where there's a sense of, again, the desire for peace and living together?
In fact, many of people, you know, in Bosra, especially in Khabab, you know, Christians and Muslims are trying, you know, to block, you know, this situation that the people, you know, can get into them. But people are afraid. And especially, you know, Muslim people who are, I would call them moderate or peaceful people, are afraid of the others, because if they are not if you are not with me, it
You
means
are
you are
against
against me,
yes, yes.
unfortunately.
Yes.
And that's why they are obliged, or to be aside or to do nothing. And that's why they flee themselves. And I can tell you, many of these people who are living together, kind of Christians or Muslims, are fleeing into Lebanon, because to be together, and now in Lebanon they are living together at the same hotel or at the same houses. At the same houses.
So the neighbors remain neighbors, just in exile.
And just to give you, an example, in my monastery in Lebanon, where I was living now, and we do have 3-4 families. They are not only Christians. There is also a Muslim family with us, because they were neighbors, of those Christians who are in Aleppo.
So you have hope that when all of this tragedy is over, when peace, we pray, comes back to Syria, that the people will return and live together once more in peace. That is, you don't see that this radicalization of the communities will become so irreparable, like, for example, what we see going on in Iraq, where the communities are still fighting.
Look, we have to be practical and pragmatic. There are always fear. There will be always fear. For my ordination date, I had 3 Muslim families who were supposed to come from Aleppo. And I was invited them because they were very good friends to me. Then they were unable to come. Not even my brother was able to come. But those people, to tell you, if peace will go back, we will be together again, to build up everything was destroyed. Then people who were friend will stay friend, will remain friend. But please, I will tell people who are not living with us, leave us in peace, and we will know how to make peace with each other. We lived all of these years, democracy, without democracy, leave us. We know what to do with our democracy, with our way of life, with our way of living. We know each other. Our mentality is completely different from the other mentality. Democracy in the West is beautiful, but democracy, the Western democracy, cannot live in Eastern democracy.
We cannot apply it one-to-one to the situation on the ground.
Absolutely.
I want to come back a little bit to the day-to-day living. For example, in Aleppo, and I don't know if it's the same situation in Bosra, and you can tell me, but in Aleppo, for example, we've received word from some of the nuns working at the St. Louis Hospital that they see people taking the bark from the trees in order to feed themselves, that the situation has become so desperate that children are no longer in schools. They are selling whatever they can find, biscuits and candies and cigarettes on the street, because the schools are no longer there and they have to find some way of helping their family. How have you seen this? How have you experienced this, either in Aleppo or in Bosra?
Okay, in Aleppo, I can tell you, it is in front of the house where I was living, because I had to return, to take some of the stuff of mine, to take it back, to the monastery, some of my books, all of that. Believe it or not, some of the kids, because many schools are destroyed, and not only that, they were cutting trees. They're cutting trees, especially taking the wood, because it was very, very cold and there is no more fuel. But many people are going to take the old bottles, of water were emptied, garbage in the garbage, and to fill them with the fuel so that they can sell them with that money. They can do something, they can buy something or something they eat. And for the food, it's very scarcely. We cannot any more food. Just 2 weeks ago, I was able to talk, kind of a minute with my brother who stays still in Aleppo, to tell him, how are you? How is everything? He's telling me, thank God we are still living, but how we are living, we don't know. I told him, do you have any kind of food or anything? He told me, pray for us, we don't know.
Poor.
Then, to be truthful, but if we receive, email from here and there and pictures, all of that, and we know the mercenaries, the mercenaries who are there, they are controlling now a lot of the city of Aleppo. Now, if you are Christians, you have to hide that you are Christians. If you are Nicolas, take another name. Don't call yourself Nicolas, call them another name so that you can get maybe a chance to go into the suburb of the city. Maybe you have to walk for an hour to get maybe some bread or something like that.
So it has become to the point that if you are a Christian, you can no longer overtly show that you are a Christian, you will be attacked, or what would happen to you if you were, for example, to give away the fact that you are a Christian?
Okay. If you are a Christian, maybe it is the best thing that you stay where you are. Don't move a lot. Don't go all over the places. And if you have some people who know you, generally, especially these Muslims friend, all of these things, and they can many times, sometimes, you know, they can bring you some food or you can buy it from them, but effectively a double price, 3 times, 4 times, you know, the prices that you paid. Yeah. And now we cannot find, you know, the things that we were used to it. Really, we were living in a paradise before now.
The Christians are fearing for their lives.
Absolutely. Believe it or not. I can say, if I may say, you know, there is a kind of a hotel, a big hotel near the monastery in Lebanon. The whole hotel, which has a capacity, I would say, of 400 people. The 400 people, all of them are Christians from Aleppo. Then figure it out, only one hotel. And I know, you know, friends of my brother, you know, who are living in another part, you know, of Lebanon, and many people are starting, you know, to live and to have, you know, kind of a place, you know, to sell food or to do anything so that they can want to live and not only stay at that.
How is it now for you in Bosra? Is the situation a bit different, calmer in Bosra? Are you able, for example, to walk the streets as an archbishop, or do you also have to take care to cover yourself, to hide yourself, to show that you are not a Christian?
I don't know if you can have any kind of reminiscence of what happened, you know, in Lebanon. There, it was the east and the west of Beirut.
Yes.
My diocese, I can say, is divided in this way: the west and the east. And at the west, I would say it is very hard, it is very difficult, and many people who have their kind of villages and the churches destroyed had flew, you know, into the east part, you know, into Khabab. As I say, Dar'a, Izra, Sanamain, you know, Shagra, these churches were destroyed. And those people who were afraid, you know, came to the other part, you know, near, you know, Khabab. And it's really, there is a kind of fear. In fact, when I went last time, you know, to be truthful, you know, I can say it and I am not afraid to say it, I was afraid. The fear, you know, took into my heart, you know, I wanted to go, why not? You know, and I told myself, God, listen, lead me. If I am there, I am there. If I am not there, you know, count me between your martyrs.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
But it is hard, you know, when you have this feeling, how can you do? And what you can do, you know? In fact, I am the leader, I am the bishop, and you have to be strong and courageous to tell people, come on, count on God. But
you yourself are afraid.
Absolutely. When you are inside, you know, you have that feeling, and what can you do? But I mean, I still have hope, and I can
I want to ask, how do you give your people hope? I mean, you swallow your own fear, and you put on the faith of, you put on the mantle of faith, and you go with God. But how do you give the faith and the hope to the young families who come to you and say, Father, what do we do? Do we stay or do we flee? What do you tell them? How do you give these people hope?
You see, it is very difficult to decide for the people, you know, but I have to say something. You know, I will tell them, I am here with you. Would you like to stay with me? You stay. You don't like it, you cannot stay, I mean, I cannot oblige you. Do what you do, and if you will go, God be with you, but don't forget us. That's the only way, if I can say it, because you know, to tell people, you stay, we are going to do, you must stay. I cannot say, you must stay. You know, you have to leave them, you know, to give them their freedom. Now, and I believe that many people, when you give them that freedom and that responsibility, and they see you, that you are staying there with the other people, many people, yes. I have to tell you, yes. Now in the 19 of the month, there will be a marriage at the Cathedral of Chabab. There will be a young couple who is going to get married. And I told them, how do you feel? They told me, we are feeling very well. I said, God bless you, and I will come and I will congratulate you after your wedding. You know, this way, they also give me, you know, that hope and the courage to continue to work for God, you know, with His people.
Many of the Christians, of course, were the educated. And perhaps you can correct me, but I have read that there are, for example, very few doctors left in the hospitals in Syria because of the fact that many of them were Christians, and the Christians saw the difficulty and they left. Mm-hmm. And many of the hospitals are run by nurses and by those who remain.
Absolutely.
Are you not worried for the future of Syria, as we say, if peace comes back, that Syria itself will be deeply impoverished by the loss of the Christian population?
You see, Iraq was impoverished, and it is still going down. And I think Syria will be in the same way, because recently they destroyed one of the most gorgeous hospital, and which was in Aleppo. They spent a lot of money on it, bringing all the new technology in it. And when they took all of that stuff, these machines, all of these, and they sold them. They sold them to Turkey, you see? And if these, I cannot see a Syrian who is living, an Aleppian who is living, taking all of this stuff, you know, to sell it out, you know, because people know what they are. Unfortunately, a lot of Christian and Muslim doctors flew, you know, Aleppo because they were afraid. Those who stayed, they were not completely finished their studies. Okay, and many people who were, you know, who left Aleppo and who went out, you know, and I don't think they will come back. They will come back. Unfortunately, not even 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, you know, a doctor came back from Canada, you know, to visit, you know, his brother in Lebanon, and he wanted to go back to Aleppo to visit his mother. You know, at the road, you know, he went, you know, with the bus. Instead, he preferred to went with the bus. He said, you know, it is safer to take a bus than to take, you know, his own car. Well, because he was in the bus, he was himself the one who was killed. You know, and he wanted just to go to visit his mother and to stay, you know, and to continue his work. And his brother, you know, wrote something, you know, on Facebook. He said, you know, remember, this is his father, his brother, and himself, you know, were the one who were doctors of gynecologists. You know, how many mothers were under their hands, how many young people went.
How many families
yes. were still, yes. You know, and you people, because you wanted, we don't know what, you know, you killed the guy.
We've seen the example of Iraq, where 1.3 million Christians were living in the country, and now there are 300,000. And the consequence of the Sunni and the Shia now attacking each other. And again, and here please correct me if I'm wrong, but in Syria, or let's see, in many of the countries in the Middle East, you do not find Sunni and Shia living together in villages where there is not a Christian presence. Somehow the Christians make a buffer between these two communities. Are you not afraid that if this war continues to go the way it's going and the Christians leave, that soon those who are left, the Sunni and the Shia, will start to fight each other?
My dear friend, I think this is the plan. This is the plan, is to impoverish the Middle East from Christians. Why all countries in the world are asking, and like Sweden now, they are taking as many Christians they want to go. Australia, Canada, why they are taking Christians? Leave them, help them to live, don't take them out. Because when you take, as you are saying, that buffer, and you know, like the cartilage between the bones, and the bones are going, you know, to break each other. And that's why they are trying to make that war between Sunni and Shiites. And as it was done, you know, my monastery, one of my monasteries in Lebanon.
What would you say, what is your appeal, what is your call to the Universal Church, to the international community?
What I would say, leave us alone. Leave us alone. Don't bother with us. And don't sell and don't send arms. Arms will kill us. Arms will put hatred instead of love. Arms is not going to help us. Arms is not an aid. Arms is like AIDS, you know, into the body of the Syrian people. Please, please, all of these people who can hear us, pray for us and try to influence all the government to not sell and to not send arms. Please us.
Your Excellency, thank you for having me with us today in our program.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today. I would encourage you to pray, to think what you can do to help bring peace about in Syria and the Middle East. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Where God Weeps. Take care.